Welcome everybody. This is 6 AM Comics and oh no, it's one of those pre-recorded videos again. Look, I'm sorry. I know how much you love seeing my aging face, but I can't do it this week. So just close your eyes and listen to my voice. Imagine we're sitting on a beach. You've got a nice cold, non-alcoholic beverage. I've got the latest worldwide comics banger from my kid, and you just have to sit there and listen to me read it to you. Actually, never mind. I kind of need you to look at the screen because, well, this is YouTube, and I've got comics to show you. Well, not a comic. It's another short story in the nail-biting Super Charlie series. Super Charlie, Chapter 2. Let's have a read, shall we? One peaceful day in I Don't Know Land, we find our hero looking for a sidekick. Suddenly, a boxer named Roxy got hit by another UFO and got superpowers too. Suddenly, Charlie and Roxy met and became a new crime-fighting duo. But then, old Dr. Vacuum Clean Nerd was back and now had a laser attachment. So, Super Charlie and Mega Roxy got a mirror in the speed of time, and the laser reflected back onto old Clean Nerd and disintegrated the vacuum cleaner. But he shall be back. To be continued. Incredible. Sequels always make me nervous because so many writers fall into the trap of attempting to outdo their previous work rather than building upon it to deliver an engaging story that progresses naturally from the groundwork laid by its predecessor. However, Nolan knew exactly what he was doing, and while the story did go a little longer than the first installment, it did so only to flesh out the world these characters live in, and even fill in a few blanks left by the first story. For instance, we now have a name for the city these characters live in. I Don't Know Land. Let's break this down, shall we? At a first glance, it may come off as though the author didn't have time to come up with a believable name for the story's setting, but anybody who's familiar with Nolan's work knows there's always a deeper meaning beneath the surface. As we discussed in the previous chapter, Super Charlie lives in an area where crime has become so common that nobody even bats an eye at an evil sentient vacuum cleaner robbing banks. It's as though all hope is gone, and these poor citizens have lost their way, accepting anything that happens to them. If you were to visit this town, you'd probably ask the locals, how did it get so bad here? And odds are, they'd answer very nonchalantly, I don't know, man. I don't know. Land. Heck, I'm willing to bet nobody even wants to acknowledge this place exists. A stain on its own country, forgotten by its government, forgotten by the world. Why even have a name at all? Layers, people. Layers. Speaking of I Don't Know Land, there seems to be only one resident trying to make a difference. Our main protagonist, Super Charlie. You figure it must get lonely being the only individual trying to fix this wretched town, let alone being a dog whom we've been given no indication that he can even speak or communicate with his human neighbors. And thus, we find him searching for a sidekick, somebody to share his quest with. It's safe to say he's had little to no luck, as it isn't until another UFO falls from the sky and crushes yet another unsuspecting canine that this search is victorious. Enter Roxy, another pup granted powers by a clumsy extraterrestrial. I'd like to call attention to the second use of the word suddenly, only one sentence after the first use. Sure, you can chalk it up to a lack of editing. I mean, it's safe to say Nolan's older brother and former editor Milo had no involvement in this series. But I'd like to think this was done intentionally. When a word is used repeatedly, it's done so to imply an emphasis on something. Suddenly, happening quickly and without warning. Unexpected. It's all happening so fast, it really puts you in the mindset of a superpowered boxer. Your senses are heightened, things are confusing, and you have no rhyme or reason. You don't have time to process, only react. It's like experiencing firsthand the life of an instinct-driven super being. You're a dog, you're being kidnapped. Something is falling out of the sky. There's a crash. You're a superhero. There's a vacuum. It's mean. You're fighting it. You're lonely. More falling things. Oh look, a friend. And just when things can't seem any more chaotic, your old nemesis, Dr. Vacuum Clean Nerd, is back and he's shooting lasers now. Suddenly. And what an interesting foe Dr. Vacuum Clean Nerd truly is. At a surface level analysis, it's just an obvious villain for a dog. Dogs hate vacuum cleaners, and of course you turn one into an evil robot for your dog story. I, however, see a much more clever angle to this rivalry. What do vacuum cleaners primarily do? They vacuum. That is, they suck things in. Ironically though, we never see this antagonist use his natural mechanism. In fact, we see him do the exact opposite. He fires a laser. I say opposite because rather than suck something in, he shoots something out. He goes against his very nature. And what a perfect contrast to our hero, Super Charlie, and to the same extent, Mega Roxy. A good boy who's driven by instinct. One willingly and defiantly embraces evil, the other inherently and instinctively fights against it. Moving on to our action-packed conclusion, we see a shift in Super Charlie's approach to fighting crime. In Chapter Uno, Charlie simply kicked butt. However, this time we see him taking a more cerebral approach to battle, as he and Roxy team up to find a mirror to reflect the laser. In reading between the lines, we can truly see how Roxy complements our roughhousing hero by bringing brains to his usual brawn. This duo is more dynamic than Batman and Robin, being that they both travel at the speed of time itself, which I imagine is very fast. They return before the laser has even reached its destination and place the mirror directly in its path, reflecting it back towards Dr. Vacuum Clean Nerd, which obviously results in his disintegration. But our story doesn't end here, because before we can even take a sigh of relief, we're told a dreadful truth, that the diabolical robot will be back. How he comes back, we simply don't know. I've always assumed disintegration is about as final as you can get, but as we've already discussed, Dr. Vacuum Clean Nerd is a being that spits in the face of expectations. If he can defy his very nature, then it's only fitting that he can also defy the laws of nature itself. I can't wait to see where the story goes in Chapter 3, but if we can learn anything from the works of Mark Marianelli, it's that we should always expect the unexpected. We can also expect that Milo will have zero involvement in his books. Siblings.